I came back. Welcome to vlog number 124. If you're wondering why I'm starting this vlog this way, it's because in vlog number 123, I questioned whether or not I would be continuing to vlog, and the outpouring of love and support from you was amazing on Facebook, on Instagram, here on YouTube. So I am so thankful for you all for reminding me why I do these videos, why I do these vlogs, why I do post on Instagram and on Facebook, and why I create content to help raise cancer awareness and provide information. And I love what I do, and I'm here to serve you. So I took a deep breath, I absorbed all of the positive energy, and I decided I would come back. I'm feeling really energized, and I just wanted to share some things that I felt like maybe I should have told you guys a while ago. Whether your dog or cat has cancer, it's just some really basic concepts I've been brainstorming, and so I want to just give you some tips about a wide range of things that I think you should know if you're dealing with cancer in your pet. So let's break it down. Let's start with the first one. Tip number one is information changes. I know that's really obvious, but it's super important. Information is constantly changing. I'm learning new information about mast cell tumors and lymphoma and different therapies. And some of the therapies that I'm using are no longer going to be available. The canine osteosarcoma vaccine that was in clinical trials is not available. There were some serious complications and side effects with Listeria, which is the type of immunotherapy vaccine. So it's really important, you know, when you watch old videos or, you know, get information, is that you realize information changes and things are going to be different from case to case. So it's really important that we stay current and realize each patient is an individual and that information will change and that this is a dynamic process. So that's one of the reasons it's so important that you go in and talk to your veterinarian and get your case reviewed, your medical records for your pet reviewed, and hopefully can see a cancer specialist. I will always drop links below on where you can go see a cancer specialist. Even if you know, God forbid you had a different dog that had lymphoma 5 years ago, 7 years ago, it doesn't mean things are going to be the same. Information changes. We constantly have to be open to new ideas and what is current now, what does the current research show, and be on top of it. That's why I'm always doing research, and that's why I'm always learning more, doing continuing education, and that's why I'm always teaching as well. So super important that we're aware of that. Tip number two, what works for one pet may not work for your pet. There's so many different things. All cancers are not the same. All lymphomas are not the same from one dog to the next, one cat to the next. And so I see all too often, even in the comments in my YouTube vlogs and on Facebook, what therapy did your dog get? I'm going to try that. Or what supplement are you using? What food? And you just have to, you know, and we say it's an N of one, you know, that in a study, like in one individual case example, stories are great. We want to know what worked. You know, we ask, well, what did you do? But that doesn't mean that it's going to work. I could treat 2 dogs with mast cell disease, same stage, you know, all the same characteristics, but they still may not respond the same. So we have to be really, really careful when we're asking for, you know, advice and recommendations from a friend or someone that we see on the internet, like what food you'd use, what supplements, what chemotherapy, because that's just one example. That's just one individual. That does not supersede or override the experience of a specialist or what a study showed. I've treated this cancer for 20 years and then they come in, well, I want to do this because my neighbor's dog, you know, was treated this way. Like, but that's not the standard of care. Just we need to be careful with that approach. Okay, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. Please do not ask me for advice for your pet that I have not seen. That's not the right way. It's not the best way to evaluate what's going on in your dog or cat. In an email, in a comment below, in a direct message, things like that. And then please don't get pissy at me if I don't reply. So just going to throw that in here at this point. People then get really pissed at me, and then that's really hurtful. And then they throw in those negative comments that I don't care. It's not that I don't care. It's just not an appropriate way to evaluate a patient's cancer. And if you're feeling that you want to throw some negative comments at me, please watch vlog number 123 before you do and see how hurtful that is, not just for me, but for other veterinary professionals as well. So there's only so much time in a day. We all have a lot to do. Please be kind and watch vlog number 123. Another question I get asked all the time is, what about new therapy? Great question. Is there clinical trials? Great question. But I think that we need to be careful with that, because for all, new therapies, great. We want to be cutting edge, but we also have to realize new therapy is a little bit less tried and true. We may not have all the data out there, especially for treatments that are in clinical trials. A good example is the canine osteosarcoma vaccine, that the initial studies that were being done at Penn, so this is for dogs with osteosarcoma. They had amputation, then 4 doses of carboplatin chemotherapy, and then they got 3 doses of the canine osteosarcoma immunotherapy vaccine given every 3 weeks for 3 doses. The initial studies that came out of University of Penn, the first clinical trial, the median survival time, so with just surgery and chemo, is about a year. And it was over 900 days with the addition of the immunotherapy vaccine. So it was super exciting. Everyone was really excited by the studies. Like, you would want to give your dog that if if you could get your paws on it, right? And so then it was in clinical trials, and they expanded it, and it was in trials in over 22 sites around the US. I worked at a hospital and we were doing it. It was super exciting. There were some side effects, and but it was manageable, and it was really exciting that we were having this therapy that prolonged, that extended survival. Dogs were tolerating the therapy well, and it was finally we were having this great breakthrough. And then in January of 2020, this year, we found out the vaccine was no longer going to be produced. Elanco was pulling it off the market. There was concerns about safety, but we were waiting for more information. Just 2 weeks ago at my cancer conference, we found out that there was Listeria positive cultures and infections in some of the dogs in the trial, about 8%. And so there's concerns about safety and the zoonotic potential of Listeria. And these were new side effects, new adverse events that they were seeing in the dogs in this larger clinical trial that they didn't see in the initial study. So they're not pursuing the vaccine. And so that's a good example where in the initial study, we're seeing the benefit of the treatment without the adverse effects, the side effects. Then in larger clinical trials, we start to see these adverse effects come out, and then the treatment is no longer available. So sometimes when you're doing new therapies, we don't know what the benefit will be. We don't know what all the side effects will be. And I see all too often where people say, well, I don't even want to do the standard of care. I'm just going to go do a clinical trial. One of the nice things about clinical trials are they're often funded, so you get some money towards treatment of your pet, and cancer treatment can be really expensive. But before you jump into a clinical trial, realize we may not even have a preview of what the survival may be. Often you will be getting some form of standard of care that, there's ethics that, panels that look at these, but there will be safety concerns, and we don't always know all of the issues going into these clinical trials. So I'm not against clinical trials, but I think you need to know before you decline standard of care that there's pluses and minuses with all the clinical trials, and there could be risk for adverse events. There's pluses and minuses, and often you're going to have to go to that site, and it may be traveling 500 miles, and sometimes you have to stay there while you're enrolled. Just things to think about where you're like, well, why aren't we talking about clinical trials? This is the reason. We have to discuss the potential benefits, but also the potential risks, and we may not know all that. So just things to think about. Talk about it with your cancer specialist, please. Thanks. Another thing that I want to bring up, and this really kind of goes back to some of the issues that happened with the issue in vlog number 123, is, when you're Googling on the internet and you're looking for information about cancer and cancer therapy, where is your information coming from? And I know sometimes on the internet, it can be really hard. And I went through my credentials in vlog number 23. I'm a board certified cancer specialist, but I'm not a board certified nutritionist. And when I do other topics, I talk to other specialists, I interview them, I do webinars. I mentioned that when I talked about COVID, I made sure I learned from the infectious specialist. So I think all too often we hear someone talk about nutrition or what they're doing, or we go to the pet food store and that one sounds good, so we do that. But we need to really, I think, scrutinize, where is your data coming from? What is that person's experience? And don't just take everything at face value. Who is your expert? Why are they an expert? Just because they have a really large Facebook following doesn't necessarily make them an expert. And so I think in the world of cancer, we just need to be really careful with where is our information coming from? How much experience do they have, in the clinic, and what are they doing? Yes, at one point, I was a new oncologist that just passed boards, and that's still okay. You're pretty smart when you first pass boards because you just pass boards, and it takes a lot of work to pass boards. But there's also a balance with being in the clinics and experience and things like that. So just think about, who is your expert? I often consult with internists and neurologists and surgeons and things like that. And that's great because it takes a village, it takes a team. So ask those tough questions, who is the expert, but just be careful with the information on the internet. And in another video, I talk about scrutinizing the information on the internet, but I think we need to be careful, especially when it comes to diet and food and what we're feeding our pets. Again, there's often not a right answer, maybe just a best answer, and you're going to make your best educated decision. But let's just make sure it's an educated decision and think about where our information's coming from. My last tip is probably a little bit more of a request and goes back to some of the things that I talked about in vlog number 123. And the veterinary profession is, you may or may not know this, but we are one of the top professions likely to commit suicide. Very complicated subject, very difficult subject to dive into the different factors, but that includes technicians and veterinarians. And I know many veterinarians personally and technicians who have taken their own life. So just as a reminder to say thank you to your veterinary team. We're hardworking. And before you put a negative comment on someone's page or on their Facebook page or on any social media, I think it's really easy to be cruel and judgy on social media. Just realize we're all in this together. We're fighting for your pet. We're on the same team. And if you don't have something nice to say that's constructive, if you have constructive feedback, I'm here. I'm okay to have an open discussion with. But, you know, if you didn't like that I was smiling in my videos, I'm sorry. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the discussion. Thank you for the support, the love, and the positivity, because we all could use a little bit more of that. So I'm going to keep doing it. I have decided that. I'm not sure about my schedule. I'm going to try to keep doing it on a regular basis, but I appreciate you. Thank you for appreciating me, and I will see you back at the next video.